Alright, so I'm back with another video, and this video is just a 10-minute game that I played today, actually. 10-minute flat, no increment. However, it's a really short game um, against a basically 2000 rated player, and I think it was really instructive going over how the initiative is important in chess, and also there's a nice sequence to end the game where I get three brilliant moves back to back to back, which in my memory, I don't think I've ever done. So let's dive right in. So I start the game off with d4. Uh, this is probably my main move, but sometimes I mix it up. So we get d5, and I go knight c3 in this game. So this is the signaling the Jobava London. So I'm going to go bishop f4 next move. So this is a Jobava London. So black goes e6. It says it's an inaccuracy. This isn't an inaccuracy. It's a pretty solid move, strengthening d5 and also readily preparing c5. The only downside is that this bishop gets blocked in right away. So that's why maybe knight f6 is slightly better, but e6 is still a fine move. Sometimes they put the bishop on d6 as well. So I go bishop f4. And I'd say commonly here, people like to try and play bishop d6 and trade the bishops off. Bishop b4 is also a move. But in the game, it was c5. And this move is fine. So I just go e3 here. And it is possible to play e4 here, but I just went with the more solid move e3, and he makes a mistake with knight c6 here. So if I were him, I would probably go either a6 to stop this knight from coming to b5, which can be annoying, or I would play maybe knight f6 and then develop, or maybe trade on d4. There's a lot of options here. However, in the game it's knight c6, and this is not a very good move, as you've seen in my Jobava London video, because of knight b5. So the problem is once this knight has developed and this pawn has moved to c5, now there's nothing that can defend against c7. So knight c7 is a serious threat. Notice how it is defended by the bishop. So now a move like e5 must be considered. Note that queen a5, I can just play c3, and this knight is still defended. No worries with that. So he goes e5 here. So this is, it's not ideal. So he realizes he's already messed up in the opening, and we're only on move 5 of the game. So I choose to play bishop takes e5. D takes e5 can also be considered, but I try a really risky line. After knight takes e5, d takes e5. So this is an interesting position because the Jobava London trap that I highlight in a previous video, after d takes e5, there's a knight hit on f6. However, this knight is still on g8, so there's not an immediate threat on this knight, so he can do something other than move the knight, which would typically be attacked on f6, where he would typically have to go knight g4 or knight e4. However, in this position, it's slightly different because he can do something else. He doesn't necessarily have to do that, so he opts for a6. And so this is when things get interesting, because typically in the Jobava London trap, you play queen takes d5. However, in this position, it's not necessarily so clear. Because this knight on b5 is hanging. However, I choose to play it like it's a sacrifice. So I play queen takes d5. And the engine doesn't necessarily love it, but it doesn't hate it either. It thinks it's playable. And the whole point is, after a takes b5, I'm just going to play bishop takes b5. So something like this might happen. And then he'd have to go bishop d7, and then I can consider moves like e6. So I have a lot of play here. Notice how he can't go bishop takes b5 because this will be very bad for him after e takes f7, king to e7, and then I can queen by taking on g8. So that would be good for me, and you don't want to allow that. So in this position, he would have to play something like queen a5, and I can go c3, and it's just a really dicey position because f7 still hit, and I'm willing to sacrifice another piece after queen takes b5 for something like that. The complications can occur, but I have a lot of play, and his king is not safe at all. So that was something I was willing to go down. However, in the game, he makes a blunder, and he goes queen a5 check, which looks like a reasonable move because You're giving a check, and you're still threatening to take the knight afterwards. Now, the smart thing to do would be to just play knight c3 here, and then play something like bishop c4 maybe, and just like consolidate, play knight f3, just consolidate being up a pawn, actually being up 2 pawns in this position. However, I play it a little bit more crazy, so I go b4. And so the idea here is very, very to the point. So if he plays queen takes b4, I'm going to go c3. So the whole point is he can't really retreat his queen, and he also doesn't have time to play c takes b4, because this would be losing after a move like knight to d6, and notice the queen can be picked up on the next move. So b4 is a really tricky move. Although the engine doesn't necessarily think it's the best move, it is the second best move and still holds a nice advantage for white. So I thought this was a clever idea. So in the game, he goes queen takes b4, and I go c3. And the point is, after all is said and done, I'm going to try and create more threats. So he goes queen a5, and then I go bishop to c4. So I'm creating threats by using the initiative to my advantage. So the whole point of this whole sequence with b4 was so that I can block the check here, but also gain a tempo so that it's my move in this position. And so now I have options. I have options here, and I go bishop c4, which is really an instructive move because it's taking the initiative. He doesn't have time to take back on b5 because I'm going to deliver some deadly threats that would result in mate or mass loss of materials. So there's only one move here, and he finds it. He goes knight h6, which defends f7, since that was the only way to defend f7 properly. In the event of something like bishop to e6, this would not be good for him due to queen takes b7, and that would be winning for white. So in the game, it's knight h6, really an only move. And I maintain the initiative with rook to d1. So this is the second brilliant move of the game, back to back. And the main point is that after something like a takes b5, I have a nasty tactic. So he doesn't necessarily have time to take there, but he's also really in a bind here. So the only move that the engine says that holds here is bishop to e7, and the idea is probably just to play bishop e7 and castle, and that's really the only move that can hold the advantage for black, or can hold just in general. However, in the game, he goes a takes b5, which is actually losing due to a tactic that I saw when I played rook to d1. So I go bishop takes b5, and this is the final point. So the third brilliant move in a row. And the whole point is you can't play queen takes b5 because of queen d8 checkmate, and then you can't play bishop d7 because that will lead to checkmate, and you can't play king to e7 because that will also lead to checkmate after queen to d6. So I thought that was a really instructive game. It was a fun game since it was only 13 moves, but I thought it was really cool how there were 3 brilliant moves in a row, and that's all for this game, and I'll talk to you guys next time.